Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Professor Dr. Viktor Petrovsky, and I am here from the University of Vladivostok. I'm a professor in international affairs and politics. This week, I got a phone call from my cousin Oleg in Beersheba. He told me, Victor, my living room was blown up by a Hamas missile. The only reason my wife Mushkin and I were saved was because we were in the back of the house pickling cabbage. I said, Oleg, I will make a video and put it on YouTube about international law, particularly the Geneva Convention, and its application to the Gaza conflict, and how the IDF can hopefully use the Geneva Convention, grow some Petrovsky, and actually do the job properly to get rid of Hamas and ensure peace is in place for its citizens. So we all know about the Geneva Convention, but what's really important is that people know the actual facts in its application. There are 4 Geneva Conventions. The one relevant here is the Fourth Geneva Convention of 1949, and it applies to non-combatants, protected persons, particularly in Gaza, the heavily populated area. So Article 27, of course, states that there is a general responsibility to protect non-combatants, protected persons. Now, Hamas is clearly not doing that. They are firing rockets at my cousin. They are sending people through tunnels to come and get my nephew. It's not on. It's just not quick. Now, having consideration to Article 27, it does not preclude or prohibit the idea from going into Gaza, even though it's tragically known that Gazan civilians are going to die in the process. Why? Because Article 28 clearly states that the presence of a protected person, i.e. a civilian, may not be used to render certain points or areas immune from military action. This means that Hamas has to stop using human shields, putting civilians in positions of harm, and trying to prohibit and prevent Israel from then bombing their bunkers or Israel bombing their missile sites. Israel needs to grow some Petrovsky and say the fact that Hamas is using human shields is their breach, it's their problem, and they're going to do what it takes to get rid of enemy sites. Now, another fact that is very well known is the fact that Hamas keeps many of its command in bunkers, and where are these bunkers? They're underneath hospitals. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows this. Even my cousin, who's 4 years old, knows this. So, what to do? Of course, Article 18 says hospitals are prohibited targets. But we need to understand that there are conditions that make what in some circumstances is prohibited permitted. So Article 19 states that if a hospital is used for non-humanitarian means, and these means are more than just treating Hamas, or more than just holding small arms of Hamas like AK-47s, and in this instance what I would say is that these hospitals are doing is they are storing beneath them missiles and Hamas personnel and command structure. This makes the hospitals legitimate targets, provided that Israel gives warning to Hamas and adequate time for the non-combatants to vacate. So what needs to happen right now is the IDF needs to come and say this: all Hamas missiles, all Hamas personnel have 24 hours to leave their positions. All non-combatants who are present at such locations, civilians, also have 24 hours to leave. Then, based on IDF intelligence, those locations should be bombed using bunker buster munitions. Enough of fighting a war like Pushinsky's. Bomb the bunkers underneath the hospitals. The Geneva Convention allows it provided you have a warning. Now, The next thing I want to talk about is why is Israel sending supplies and medical equipment and electricity to Gaza? 70% of electricity in Gaza comes from Israel. Oleg told me this. I banged my head against the wall. I need a drink right now. Of course, Article 23 states that medical supplies and like humanitarian aid must be given by Israel to Gaza. However, again, there are conditions. The first condition is that it must be proven that the consignment will not be misdirected from where it is deliberately being delivered. In this case, the medical aid and the supplies, including concrete, building materials, have not been going to the Gazan citizens. They've all been going to Hamas first. They have been misdirected. And Hamas has used them to build tunnels so that they can infiltrate Israel and try and kill my cousin and my nephew. And this is just not on. So for that reason alone, the supplies could be stopped. But there's another reason. Another reason the supplies must be stopped is because of subsection C of Article 23, which states that if these supplies and electricity and other things will provide a definite advantage to the economy or the war effort of Hamas, then they can't be stopped. So why is Israel providing electricity, 70% of the electricity to Gaza, when they know they're using this electricity to power their war room, to power their munitions factories, and to light up their command centers? If Israel was not supplying them 70% of the electricity would have to be allocated to proper humanitarian things and could not be put to the war. Israel, please, Grossen Kartoshka. People of Israel, please, Grossen Kartoshka. And know the law, know the Geneva Convention, because many people misquoted, many people misguided in their application of it. The Israel Convention does not mean Israel needs to fight. The Geneva Convention does not mean Israel needs to fight like Pushinskis. We can Grossen Kartoshka and defend our citizens and defend Cousin Oleg. Until next time, spasiba, and look after yourselves.